The massive space station floated in the dark between stars. It was bigger than most cities, made of crystal and metal that caught the light from distant suns. Inside, beings from 17 different worlds walked through hallways that hummed with energy. This was the Galactic Council Station, and today would change everything. Ambassador Zix Theta from the Altarian hegemony stood in the main hall. She had 4 arms and skin that looked like polished stone. She moved all 4 arms at once, checking the floating computer screen in front of her. The data showed information about the new species coming to meet them. Humans, they called themselves. From a small system with a yellow star. "They are almost here," said Coordinator Velnash. He looked like a giant snake with scales that changed color when he talked. His long body wrapped around the speaking platform in the center of the room. "The human ship is approaching our station." Every being in the room turned to look through the huge window that showed the space outside. A white ship with blue stripes was coming closer. It was small compared to the other ships docked at the station. It looked simple, almost primitive. The ship sent out signals of peace on every channel, telling everyone they came as friends. Inside the human ship, Captain Jake Morrison stood at the controls. He was a tall man with gray hair and steady hands. His brown eyes watched the alien station grow larger as they approached. Next to him stood Ambassador Lisa Grant. She had short black hair and wore a simple blue uniform. She was reading her speech one more time. "Remember what we practiced," Lisa said quietly to Jake. "We need them to think we're harmless, new to space travel, excited and grateful to be here." Jake nodded without taking his eyes off the controls. "The rest of the fleet is in position?" "All 47 ships are ready," Lisa confirmed. "Hidden in bent space where their sensors can't find them. They won't know we're anything more than what we seem." The truth was that humans had been traveling through space for over 100 years. They had colonies on 14 different worlds. They had technology that these aliens couldn't imagine. But the aliens didn't know that. They thought humans had just learned to leave their planet. 3 months ago, the Altarians had found Earth with their deep space probes. They detected radio signals and basic fusion engines. They saw what looked like a young civilization taking its first steps into space. The Council sent an invitation for humanity to join them. They thought they were being kind to a primitive species that needed guidance. The aliens had no idea that humans had been watching them for 60 years. Every message they sent, every war they fought, every deal they made, humans had been listening and learning. The human ship docked with the station. Jake felt the soft bump as they connected. He turned to his crew. There were 12 humans on board, but only 6 would go to the meeting. The others would stay on the ship, ready for anything. "This is it," Jake said. "Everyone knows their role. We're explorers who just discovered we're not alone. We're grateful for their invitation. We're amazed by their technology. We want to learn from them." Paul Wright, the security chief, checked his uniform one last time. He was a large man with dark skin and careful eyes. To the aliens, he would look like a simple guard, maybe even scared of being in space. But Paul had fought in 3 wars and commanded fleets. His job was to memorize everything, every door, every weapon, every weakness. Danny Chen, one of the younger diplomats, straightened his collar. He had been studying alien languages for 10 years. He could speak 6 of them perfectly, but today he would pretend to need a translator for everything. "The Council is waiting," Lisa said. "Let's go meet our new friends." They walked through the airlock and into the station. The hallways were beautiful, with walls that seemed to glow from inside. The air smelled different. Not bad, just strange. They passed aliens of all shapes and sizes. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others floated or crawled or rolled. A tall creature with blue skin and 6 eyes came to meet them. "Welcome, humans," it said through a translation device. "I am Guide Torval. I will take you to the council chamber." "Thank you," Lisa said, making her voice sound amazed. "This station is wonderful. We've never seen anything like it." As they walked, Paul counted everything. 14 guards in this section. Energy weapons, probably plasma-based. The walls were strong but had weak points, every 20 meters. The gravity was artificial and could be disrupted. He memorized it all while looking around with fake wonder. They entered the council chamber. It was huge, with seats arranged in circles that went up like stairs. Hundreds of alien representatives sat watching. At the center was a platform where speakers could stand. The ceiling was clear, showing the stars outside. The High Chancellor of the Altarians stood up. She was 3 meters tall, and her crystal body caught the light in beautiful patterns. When she spoke, her voice sounded like music. "Welcome, humans of Earth," she said. "We are pleased you have come. The Galactic Council has existed for 3,000 years. We have brought peace and order to this part of the galaxy. Today we offer you a place among us." Lisa walked to the speaking platform. She let her hands shake just a little, like she was nervous. "Thank you, High Chancellor. This is the most important day in human history. We are honored to be here." The Vraxian delegate made a clicking sound with his mouth parts. He was huge, like a giant insect that stood on 4 legs. His species had conquered 40 star systems. He looked at the humans like they were insects too, small and weak. "Tell us about your world," said another delegate, this one covered in purple fur. "How did you discover space travel?" Lisa began the story they had practiced. She told them about Earth, showing pictures of cities and forests. She talked about their first rockets, their struggles to reach their own moon. She made it sound like humanity had barely managed to build one ship that could travel between stars. "We know we have much to learn," Lisa said. "We hope you will. Teach us. We want to be good members of the council." Some of the aliens looked bored. Others seemed amused. A few looked at the humans with pity. Poor little humans, they thought. So weak and new to space. They would need protection and guidance. The High Chancellor's colors shifted to show approval. "The Council will vote on your membership. As a new species with limited technology, you would enter as Category 7. This means you will be under our protection. We will share knowledge with you as we think appropriate. You will follow Council law and accept Council guidance." "We understand," Lisa said, bowing her head. "We are grateful for your protection." The vote was quick. Every species voted yes. Why wouldn't they? The humans were harmless. They had one small ship and primitive technology. They would be easy to control, like all the other young species the Council had found. "The humans are accepted," the High Chancellor announced. "Welcome to the Galactic Council." The chamber filled with polite applause. Some aliens clapped, others flashed lights, and some made harmonious sounds. The humans smiled and bowed, playing their part perfectly. As the formal ceremony ended, aliens came to greet the new members. They spoke slowly to the humans, like talking to children. They explained basic things about space travel that humans had mastered decades ago. The humans nodded and looked amazed at everything they heard. Jake stood near a window, looking out at the ships docked at the station. He could see Vraxian warships, Altarian science vessels, and trading ships from dozen worlds. None of them could see the human fleet hidden in bent space-time, waiting and watching. Everything was going according to plan. The reception hall of the Galactic Council station was magnificent. The walls curved up to meet in a dome, covered with star maps that showed every member world. Tables floated at different heights to accommodate species of various sizes. Food and drinks from 100 worlds filled the air with strange and wonderful smells. Lisa Grant moved through the crowd, playing her role perfectly. She held a glass of something blue that bubbled and sparked, pretending to sip it while actually letting none pass her lips. She didn't know what it was, and tonight was not the time to find out. Around her, alien delegates mingled and talked, many approaching the human delegation with curiosity. A group of Altarians surrounded her, their crystalline bodies chiming softly as they moved. The lead diplomat, a smaller one whose body was more pink than purple, leaned forward with what seemed like kindness. "You must find all of this overwhelming," she said, her translated voice full of sympathy. "When my species first joined the Council 2,000 years ago, we too were amazed by the diversity of life." Lisa made her eyes go wide. "It's incredible. We always wondered if we were alone. To find out there are so many other species and all so advanced, It's humbling. The Altarian made a sound that might have been a laugh. You will learn in time. The Council will guide you. We have programs to help primitive species adapt. You won't be given anything too dangerous, of course. Some technologies must be earned through centuries of development. Of course, Lisa agreed, putting gratitude into her voice. We wouldn't want anything we couldn't handle safely. Across the room, Danny Chen was surrounded by a group of Corvan traders. They were furry beings with 6 eyes and long arms that reached the ground. They smelled like wet earth and spoke in barks and growls that the translators turned into smooth words. Your planet has water? One asked. Real, liquid water? About 70% of our surface, Danny replied, keeping his voice innocent and eager. Is that unusual? The Corvans exchanged looks that Danny understood perfectly. He had read their body language guides 1,000 times. They were thinking about profit. Water was valuable in space, and these simple humans didn't know it. Not unusual, the lead Corvan lied smoothly. But perhaps we could arrange a trade. We have many technologies you might find useful. Simple things, appropriate for your level. In exchange, perhaps some of your water? Danny pretended to think about it. I would need to ask my government. We're new to this. What kind of technologies? Oh, basic improvements to your life support systems. Maybe some simple medical scanners. Nothing too advanced, you understand? The Council has rules about what Category 7 species can receive. Danny nodded eagerly while memorizing every word. The Corvans planned to cheat humanity, trading worthless old technology for Earth's most valuable resource. They had done this to 12 other species. Danny knew because humans had read all their files, stolen from supposedly secure Council databases years ago. Paul Wright stood near the main entrance, looking uncomfortable in his dress uniform. Several military representatives from warrior species had approached him, each one dismissing him after a few words. He was too small, they thought. His species had no claws, no armor, no visible weapons. How did they even survive on their own planet? A Vraxian warrior approached, towering over Paul. His compound eyes studied the human with the kind of interest a scientist might show for an unusual but harmless insect. You are military? The Vraxian asked, his mandibles clicking with amusement. Security chief, Paul answered, making his voice sound uncertain. Though I guess compared to you, I'm not much of a soldier. The Vraxian's 4 arms moved in what Paul recognized as laughter. No, you are not. Your species is soft, no natural weapons. How did you become the dominant life on your world? We use tools, Paul said simply. And we work together. Tools, the Vraxian repeated, like it was a joke. Little pieces of metal and wood. How quaint. You will find that in space, biology matters. The strong survive. The weak seek protection. It is good that you have joined the Council. Alone, your species would not last a single rotation. Paul nodded, looking at the ground like he was intimidated. Inside, he was thinking about the weapons hidden in human space. Weapons that could crack a moon in half. Weapons that could make a Stargo Nova. Weapons the Council had banned because they were too dangerous. The Vraxians thought strength came from size and claws. They would learn differently. Captain Jake Morrison found himself in conversation with the High Chancellor, herself. She had approached him near the observation deck where he stood looking out at the stars. Her crystal body reflected his face in a dozen different angles. Your first time in deep space, Captain? She asked. First time this far from Earth, Jake said truthfully. He had been to 100 systems, but they were all in different directions from this one. It's beautiful out here. Space can be dangerous for the unprepared, the Chancellor said. There are species that do not belong to the Council. Pirates, raiders, civilizations that refuse to accept order. Your single ship would not survive an encounter with them. We understand, Jake said. That's why we're grateful for the Council's protection. The Chancellor's colors shifted to what Jake knew meant satisfaction. You show wisdom. Some species resist at first. They think independence is more important than safety. They learn. Eventually. Those that survive anyway. Jake heard the threat hidden in her kind words. Join us or die. Be protected or be destroyed. It was the same choice the Council had given every species for 3,000 years. Most submitted. Some fought and lost. A few disappeared into the dark between stars, never to be seen again. We just want to learn and grow, Jake said. We want to be good members of the galactic community. And you will be, the Chancellor assured him. In a few hundred years, you might even reach Category 6. Perhaps in 1,000 years, Category 5. Few species rise higher than that. Jake knew the categories well. 7 meant primitive, protected, controlled. 6 meant limited trade rights. 5 meant a voice in small matters. Only the founding species held Categories 1 and 2, with all the power and control. As the evening continued, the human delegation played their parts perfectly. They asked simple questions and marveled at basic answers. They accepted every insult disguised as kindness. They let themselves be patronized, dismissed, and underestimated. A young Centauri delegate approached Lisa near the end of the reception. The Centauri looked almost human, except for the silver skin and solid black eyes. She spoke quietly, her translator barely audible. You play the fool well, she said. Lisa kept her expression innocent. I don't understand. The Centauri studied her for a long moment. No, perhaps you don't. But if you did, if your species was more than it appears, you would find you are not alone in your deception. Before Lisa could respond, the Centauri walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Lisa filed the interaction away in her memory. The Centauri were listed as Category 6, a subordinate species for 500 years. But maybe they were hiding something too. As the reception ended, the human delegation gathered near the exit. They had spent 4 hours being studied, cataloged, and dismissed. The aliens thought they knew everything about humanity now. Weak, primitive, harmless. Ambassador Lisa Grant shook hands with dozens of aliens as they left, each one offering condescending advice or empty promises of friendship. She smiled at all of them, thanked them for their wisdom, and promised to learn from their example. Guide Torval led them back to their ship. As they walked through the station's corridors, he talked constantly about the wonders they would see as council members, the medical advances they might receive in 50 years, the agricultural improvements they could earn in a century, the basic defensive weapons they might be trusted with in 200 years. The humans nodded and smiled, making appropriate sounds of amazement. They didn't mention the medical nanobots already in their blood. They didn't talk about the vertical, farms that could feed billions. They certainly didn't discuss the quantum torpedoes that could punch through any shield the Council had. As they reached their ship, Torval patted Jake on the shoulder with one of his 4 hands. You did well today. Many species embarrassed themselves at their first Council meeting. You showed proper respect and humility. Thank you for your guidance, Jake said with a slight bow. Once aboard their ship with the airlock sealed, the humans finally dropped their masks. Paul pulled off his uncomfortable dress uniform jacket and threw it on a chair. Those arrogant insects, did you hear the Vraxian? He actually asked if we knew what space was. Danny laughed, but it was sharp and without humor. The Corvins want to trade worthless junk for our water. They think we're too stupid to know its value. Lisa sat down at the communication console. The Chancellor made it clear, submit or be destroyed. They've done this to hundreds of species. Jake looked at his crew. These were some of humanity's best, scientists, soldiers, diplomats, spies. They had fooled the entire Galactic Council. In one evening, contact Admiral Foster, Jake ordered. Tell her Phase 1 is complete. The Council believes we're harmless. Time to begin Phase 2. 6 hours had passed since the reception began. The Grand Hall was now less formal, with delegates scattered in smaller groups. The careful diplomatic speeches had given way to casual conversation, helped along by various intoxicating substances from different worlds. It was in this relaxed atmosphere that humanity's careful mask began to crack, though at first, no one noticed. Danny Chen stood with a group of younger delegates near a floating bar that served drinks from 40 different worlds. The Corvan trade minister Velkash had consumed a large amount of fermented starfruit juice. His 6 eyes were unfocused, and his long arms swayed as he talked. "You humans are so small," Velkash said, his translator slurring the word slightly. "How did you even survive on your planet? We studied your files. You have predators with teeth and claws. You have no natural defenses. It must have been luck." Danny had been smiling and nodding for hours, playing the grateful primitive. But something in Velkash's tone, the pure contempt disguised as curiosity, finally pushed him too far. "We survived by being smarter than everything else," Danny said, quietly. Velkash laughed, a barking sound that drew attention from nearby groups. "Smarter? You just told us earlier that you've barely mastered fusion power. My species' children learn fusion theory in primary education. You still burn chemical rockets. Do you know how primitive that is?" "Primitive," Danny repeated, his voice changing slightly. The eager, naive tone was gone. "Tell me, Velkash, has your species figured out quantum entanglement communication yet?" The laughter stopped. Velkash's 6 eyes all focused on Danny at once. "Quantum entanglement communication is theoretical. No species has achieved instantaneous communication across space." Danny took a sip of his water. He had been drinking only water all night, despite being offered dozens of alien beverages. Theoretical. Right. Like bending space-time for travel is theoretical. Like hiding entire fleets from sensors is theoretical. Like hacking into supposedly secure council databases from light years away is theoretical. The silence spread outward. Like ripples on water, more aliens turned to listen. Velkash's fur stood on end, a sign of alarm in his species. "What are you saying, human?" Before Danny could answer, alarms began screaming through the station. Red lights flashed in patterns that meant only one thing to everyone present. Unknown. Vessels detected. The massive view screen that dominated one wall of the reception hall flickered to life, showing a tactical display of local space. The Varaxian military commander, General Krextor, rushed to a control panel. His forearms moved frantically over the displays. "This is impossible. Ships are appearing from nowhere. They're just materializing." On the screen, red dots began appearing around the station. 1, then 3, then a dozen. The dots resolved into ship silhouettes as the station's sensors struggled to understand what they were seeing. These weren't using any known cloaking technology. They were bending space itself, stepping out of folds in reality that the Council's science said couldn't exist. The first ship to fully materialize was the TNS Retribution. It was a kilometer long, its hull a dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Weapons ports lined its sides, hundreds of them. Some glowed with energies that the station's computers couldn't identify. Then came more. The TNS Havoc, sleek and predatory. The TNS Supremacy, bristling with what looked like sensor arrays, but were actually weapons that fired through dimensions. The TNS Dominator, its hull scarred from battles the Council knew nothing about. The High Chancellor stood from her seat, her crystalline form flickering through colors of shock and rage. "What is this? Whose ships are these?" Captain Jake Morrison walked to the center of the room, his casual walk replaced by the stride of a military commander. He touched a device on his wrist and his voice echoed through the hall's speakers. "Those are human ships, High Chancellor. Part of the Terran Navy's 3rd Fleet, to be specific." The room erupted in chaos. Dozens of voices in different languages, all shouting at once. The translators struggled to keep up, creating a cacophony of overlapping words. Through it all, Jake stood calm and still, waiting. Lisa Grant joined him, and when she spoke, her voice cut through the noise like a blade. "If everyone would please calm down, we can explain." "Explain?" The Varaxian general's mandibles clicked, in fury. "You lied to us. You said you had one ship. You said you were primitive." "We said what you expected to hear," Lisa replied simply. "You found our radio signals from Earth and assumed we were new to space. You never asked if we had colonies. You never wondered why our primitive ship had no trouble navigating to your station. You saw what you wanted to see, another weak species to control." Paul Wright moved to stand beside them, and now he looked nothing like the nervous security officer from before. He stood like a soldier who had won wars. Your security is also lacking. We've been in your computer systems for decades. We know every ship position, every defense grid, every secret military installation. To prove his point, Paul pulled out what looked like a simple data tablet. He tapped it 3 times. Every weapon system on the station powered down. The lights flickered. Gravity lessened for a moment before stabilizing. Then everything returned to normal. That was a demonstration, Paul said. We could shut down life support if we wanted. We could overload your reactors. We could turn your own weapons against you. But we won't. Because despite what you think, we're not here to fight. Admiral Amy Foster's face appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from the bridge of the Retribution. She was a small woman with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. Behind her, the bridge was full of humans working at stations that displayed technologies the Council didn't recognize. This is Admiral Foster of the Terran Navy, she said. Our stealth fleet consists of 400 vessels currently deployed throughout Council space. We have ships at every major trade route, every homeworld, every military installation. You never detected us because our stealth technology is beyond your understanding. The Chancellor's form was cycling through colors so fast it was hard to look at. You dare threaten the Galactic Council? We have thousands of ships, millions of warriors, weapons that have destroyed entire civilizations. We know, Admiral Foster said calmly. We've studied every battle you fought. We know your tactics, your weapons capabilities, your weaknesses. For example, the Vraxian dreadnoughts. Impressive ships, but their shields have a frequency vulnerability that makes them useless against quantum phase weapons. The Altarian defense grid around your homeworld. It can be bypassed by jumping through the 7th dimension. Should I continue? General Krextor's compound eyes were wide with shock. Those were military secrets known only to the highest levels of each government. Yet this human spoke of them like they were reading from a basic textbook. Danny Chen had moved to a console and was pulling up holographic displays. Star charts appeared in the air, showing the entire Council space. Red dots marked human positions. They were everywhere. We've been watching you for 60 years, Danny explained, his earlier pretense completely gone. We learned your languages, your cultures, your politics. We know which species hate each other, which alliances are about to break, which governors would switch sides for the right price. We know about the 3 species you've driven to extinction because they wouldn't submit. We know about the genetic modifications you force on lesser species to make them better servants. A delegate from the Milani Republic, a small aquatic species in a water-filled mobility suit, suddenly spoke up. You know about the modifications? We know everything, Lisa said, her voice gentler now. We know what they did to your species. How they changed your brain chemistry to make you more compliant. We know about the rebellion you tried 50 years ago, and how they crushed it. The room had gone quiet now. The shock was wearing off, replaced by something else. Fear from some, hope from others. The Centauri delegate who had approached Lisa earlier stepped forward. If you've been watching for so long, why reveal yourselves now? Jake answered this one. Because you found Earth. We couldn't hide it anymore. So we had a choice. Wait for you to discover the truth and possibly attack us or control the revelation ourselves. This is an act of war, the Chancellor stated, her voice cold and hard. No, Lisa said firmly. This is an act of survival. We've seen what you do to species you consider threats. The Jaxari Empire, destroyed because they refused to share their jump drive technology. The Pyrian Collective, enslaved because their planet had resources you wanted. We won't be destroyed or enslaved, Admiral Foster spoke again from the screen. We have no desire for war. In fact, we've gone to great lengths to avoid it. Do you know how many times we could have destroyed Council ships that came too close to our hidden colonies? How many times we've redirected your probes away from our space? We've been avoiding you for decades, hoping to develop in peace. But you found Earth, and that changed everything. The High Chancellor seemed to compose herself, her colors stabilizing into deep purples and blues. What do you want? Equality, Lisa said simply. Real equality. Not Category 7 protected status that's actually servitude. Not slow advancement. Over centuries while you exploit our resources. We want a seat at the table as equals, and the council chamber had transformed from a place of celebration to a war room. Military commanders from every major species huddled around tactical displays, their voices rising in heated arguments. The human fleet held position around the station, weapons powered but not aimed. It was a threat and a promise balanced on the edge of a blade. 3 days had passed since the revelation. 3 days of arguments, threats, and negotiations that went nowhere. The High Chancellor had called for reinforcements, and Vraxian battleships now surrounded the system. But for every council ship that arrived, another vessel from the hidden fleets appeared. The balance of power shifted with each hour. Lisa Grant sat at the negotiation table, surrounded by delegates from both sides. Dark circles under her eyes showed the strain of 3 days without sleep, but her voice remained steady. Across from her, the High Chancellor's crystalline form pulsed with barely controlled anger. "You speak of equality," the Chancellor said, "but you achieved your position through deception and threats. How can we trust anything you say?" "The same way we trusted you when you invited us here," Lisa replied. "You told us we would be protected, guided, helped to grow. But we read your history. Every species that accepted your protection became a servant. Every resource they had became yours to exploit." General Krextor slammed one of his forearms on the table. "We brought order to chaos. Before the Council, this region was constant war, species destroying each other over petty disputes. We ended that." "You replaced many wars with one empire," Paul Wright said from his position by the door. He had spent 3 days coordinating with the human fleet, ensuring their defensive positions were perfect. "You didn't end conflict, you just made sure you always won." A new voice entered the conversation. The Centauri delegate, who had revealed herself as Commander Lyra, stood up. Her silver skin caught the light as she moved. "My people have been Category 6 for 500 years. We developed jump drives 3 centuries ago, but we had to hide them. We created weapons that could defend our world, but we had to pretend. Weakness, why? Because showing strength would have meant destruction." The Milani delegate in his water suit spoke next. His voice filtered through bubbling liquid. "The Council sterilized 30% of our population because we refused to mine our ocean floors for you. You called it a necessary population adjustment. We call it genocide." More stories came out. The Corvin traders admitted they had been forced to cheat newer species because the Council took 90% of their legitimate profits as protection fees. The smaller species told of resources stolen, cultures suppressed, technologies forbidden. Jake Morrison had been quiet for most of the negotiations, but now he stood. "We have a proposal, a new structure, no more categories. Every species gets 1 vote. Decisions require a 2/3 majority, not just agreement from the founding members." "Absurd," the Altarian Chancellor said. "Some species have been spacefaring for millennia. Others can barely leave their planets. They cannot have equal say in galactic matters." "Why not?" Danny Chen asked. "On Earth, we learned that wisdom doesn't always come with age. Sometimes the newest voice has the best idea. Sometimes the smallest nation has the solution everyone needs." Admiral Foster appeared on the communication screen. Behind her, the bridge of the Retribution hummed with activity. "High Chancellor, we need to discuss the real situation. You've called for your fleets, but so have we. Would you like to know the actual numbers?" Without waiting for an answer, Foster continued. "The Terran Navy has 400 ships in this galaxy. The Centauri have hidden 200. The Milani have 150. The other species that have joined us bring another 300. That's over 1,000 ships with technology you didn't know existed." "We have 3,000 ships," General Krextor protested. "You have 3,000 ships you know about," Foster corrected. "But how many will fight for you when they learn the truth?" "The Corvin fleet is already discussing switching sides. The Jal Republic is reconsidering their alliance. Your subordinate species make up 60% of your military. What happens when they refuse to fight? As if to emphasize her point, new signals appeared on the tactical display. A Corvan battle group had just jumped into the system, but instead of joining the Council forces, they took position with the human fleet. The Corvan admiral appeared on screen, his 6 eyes focused and clear. The Corvan Republic stands with those seeking equality. We are tired of being thieves for the Council's benefit. The High Chancellor's form flickered through a spectrum of colors: shock, rage, fear, and something else. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Galactic Council faced a real challenge to its power. Lisa stood and walked to the center of the room. We don't want war. Nobody here does. War would destroy trade routes, kill billions, and set back civilization by centuries. But we won't accept slavery disguised as protection. She pulled up a holographic document, a new charter for the Galactic Council. This is our proposal. Every species gets 1 vote, no technology restrictions based on categories, free trade without exploitation, military protection that's actually protection, not control, shared research and development, real unity, not domination. And if we refuse? The Chancellor asked, though her voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. Jake answered this time. Then we disappear. All of us. The humans, the Centauri, the Milani, everyone who wants freedom. We vanish into the dark between stars, but we don't leave. We stay hidden, watching, waiting. Your trade ships will never know if today's the day strange vessels appear. Your colonies will always wonder if tonight they'll lose communications. You'll spend every resource you have trying to find us, trying to defend against us. But worse than that, Lisa added, you'll lose everything we could offer. Human medical technology that could extend lifespans by centuries. Centauri jump drives that make your current engines look like rowing boats. Milani underwater cities that can survive on any ocean world. All the innovations that come from free minds working together instead of serving masters. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the choice. War that nobody would truly win, or peace with a new structure. Control that was slipping away, or cooperation that could benefit everyone. A small voice broke the silence. It came from the representative of the Epsilon Reconciliation, a species that had joined the Council only 50 years ago. They looked like clouds of coherent gas, constantly shifting and reforming. I would like to see this new charter, they said. My people have been Category 7 for 50 years. We've developed technologies that could help everyone, but we're forbidden to share them. If this new structure would let us contribute fully, we support it. One by one, other species began to speak. The tiny Pixari, who had been treated as pets despite their genius-level intelligence. The Cybernetic Nexus Collective, who had been forced to limit their upgrades to avoid seeming threatening. The plant-based Verdani, whose biological sciences were centuries ahead but locked away. Each species that had been controlled, limited, or exploited voiced their support. The founding members of the Council found themselves outnumbered in their own chamber. General Krextor turned to the High Chancellor. His compound eyes showed something that might have been resignation. We cannot fight everyone. If all the subordinate species rebel, if the humans truly have the technology they claim, if our own fleets turn against us. The Chancellor's form shifted to deeper blues, colors of thought and calculation. She was thousands of years old, had led her people through expansion and conquest. But she was also intelligent enough to recognize when the game had changed. Show me the full charter, she said finally. Lisa gestured and the holographic document expanded. Hundreds of pages of details appeared in the air. Rights and responsibilities, trade agreements, military cooperation, research sharing. It was comprehensive, clearly the product of years of planning. You've been preparing this for a long time, the Chancellor observed. 60 years, Lisa confirmed. Since we first discovered your transmissions, we hoped we would never need it. We hoped the Council might reform on its own, but when you found Earth, we knew it was time. The Chancellor studied the charter. Despite her anger at being deceived, she had to admit it was well crafted. It protected everyone's interests while preventing any single species from dominating. It was what the Council should have been from the beginning. The Vraxian Empire will never accept this, General Krextor said. We are warriors. We've conquered 40 systems. We don't accept equality with prey species. Paul Wright laughed, a sound that made everyone turn to look at him. Prey species? General, would you like to know how many wars humanity has fought? We've nearly destroyed ourselves 3 times. We've split atoms and rebuilt them. We've created viruses that could kill everything that breathes and vaccines that could save them. We fought wars over ideas, over resources, over insults. We are not prey. We are predators who chose to be peaceful. There's a difference, Admiral Foster added from the screen. And if the Vraxian Empire wants to test that, we're prepared. We have weapons you can't imagine, devices that manipulate fundamental forces, bombs that create black holes, viruses that eat metal. We studied your entire military history, General. The new Galactic Council convened exactly 1 week after humanity revealed its true nature. The chamber looked the same, but everything else had changed. The seating arrangement no longer separated species by categories. The speaking platform was accessible to all, not just the founding members. Most importantly, the vote that was about to take place would include every voice equally. Lisa Grant stood at the podium, but this time she wasn't alone. Representatives from 14 species stood with her, the Alliance of the Hidden, as they had come to be called. Races that had concealed their true capabilities for decades or centuries, all waiting for this moment. The High Chancellor sat in what was no longer the position of ultimate authority, but simply one seat among many. Her crystalline form had dulled over the past week, showing what passed for exhaustion in her species. The rapid change had been hardest on those who had held power the longest. Before we vote on the new charter, Lisa began, we want to share something with this council, the real history of humanity, not the fiction we presented before. The lights dimmed and a holographic display filled the center of the chamber. It showed Earth, blue and green and beautiful, floating in space. We nearly destroyed ourselves, Lisa said simply. 3 times in our history, we came within moments of ending all life on our planet. Nuclear war, biological weapons, environmental collapse. Each time we stepped back from the edge, but only just. The display showed images of human history, wars, devastation, but also rebuilding, cities rising from ashes, enemies becoming allies, weapons turned into tools. We learned something from our near extinction, Jake Morrison added, stepping forward. We learned that strength without wisdom leads to destruction. Power without responsibility leads to ruin. So when we developed faster-than-light travel 137 years ago, we made a choice. We would go to the stars, but quietly. We would watch and learn before we acted. Danny Chen took over the narrative. We found your transmission 60 years ago. We could have announced ourselves then. Our technology was already beyond most of yours. But we saw how you treated younger species, and we knew what would happen. You would have seen us as a threat and tried to destroy us, or you would have tried to control us. Neither option was acceptable. Paul Wright gestured, and the display changed to show human colonies, cities under strange suns, research stations in impossible places, fleets hidden in folded space. So we spread through the galaxy in secret. We developed technologies you thought impossible. We learned every language, studied every culture, understood every strength and weakness, not to conquer, but to survive. Admiral Foster appeared on the main screen, still commanding from the Retribution. We watched you make the same mistakes we almost made, using power to dominate instead of cooperate, taking resources instead of trading fairly. We saw you heading toward the same cliff we almost fell from. And now? The High Chancellor asked, her voice carrying across the chamber. Now that you have power, what will you do with it? Lisa smiled, the first genuine smile she had shown since arriving at the station. We're going to do something that might surprise you. We're going to share it. The display changed again, showing technological schematics, medical devices that could cure diseases thought incurable, agricultural systems that could feed worlds, energy sources that were clean and endless. This is what humanity offers freely to all member species of the new council, Lisa announced. No payment required, no servitude demanded. We share these because a galaxy where everyone prospers is safer than one where a few dominate. The Centauri commander, Lyra, stepped forward. The Centauri offer our jump drive technology. Real jump drives, not the limited versions we've pretended to struggle with. Any species that wants them can have them. The Milani delegate bubbled with excitement. We offer our underwater terraforming technology. 70% of habitable planets have oceans. We can make them all livable. One by one, species that had hidden their advances offered to share them. The chamber filled with possibilities that had been suppressed for centuries. General Krextor stood slowly. The Vraxian warrior looked older somehow, his proud bearing diminished. And what of those who built the old council? What place is there for us in your new order? The same place as everyone else, Lisa said firmly but not unkindly. One vote, one voice. Your experience is valuable, your knowledge is needed, but your dominance is over. We could still fight, the general said, though there was no real threat in his voice. The founding species still have the largest fleets. You could, Paul Wright agreed. But you'd lose. Not because our weapons are better, though they are. Not because our ships are faster, though they are. You'd lose because you'd be fighting the entire galaxy. Every species you've controlled, every race you've exploited, every civilization you've held back, they all stand with us now. As if to prove his point, the tactical display showed the current fleet positions. The station was surrounded by over 2,000 ships from dozens of species. The founding species fleets were outnumbered 3-1. The High Chancellor stood. Call the vote. The process was simple. Each species would vote, yes or no on the new charter. No weighted voting based on categories, no veto power for founding members. Just one vote per species as equals. The roll call began. The Altarians, after a long pause, voted yes. They had calculated the odds and understood that acceptance was better than isolation. The Vraxians voted no, as expected, but their single vote carried no more weight than any other. The Corvins voted yes enthusiastically. The Milani voted yes. The Centauri voted yes. One by one, species that had been controlled for centuries voted for freedom. Even some of the founding members, seeing which way the tide was turning, voted for the new charter. When the count was finished, it wasn't even close. 43 species voted yes. Only 4 voted no. The new charter is accepted, Lisa announced. The Galactic Council is reformed. All technology restrictions are lifted. All trade barriers based on categories are removed. All species have equal representation. The chamber erupted in celebration from some, silence from others. The galaxy had changed in a single moment, and everyone knew there was no going back. 3 months later, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the TNS Harmony, the same ship that had first approached the station, now revealed as a heavily armed diplomatic cruiser. Outside, he could see the massive construction project that had begun around the council station. New docking rings were being built to accommodate the flood of ships from previously restricted species. Trade was booming now that artificial barriers had been removed. Lisa joined him, looking tired but satisfied. The Vraxians are adapting better than expected. They're actually excellent at cooperative defense planning when they're not trying to dominate everyone. And the Altarians? They're struggling with equality, but they're trying. The High Chancellor has actually become an advocate for the new system. She says it's more interesting than the old one. Jake laughed. More interesting? That's one way to put it. Paul Wright entered carrying a datapad. Intelligence report. 3 more hidden colonies have revealed themselves. Turns out we weren't the only ones with secret bases. The galaxy is about 40% bigger than the Council thought. Any threats? Lisa asked. No. Everyone's too busy trading and exploring. The Milani are terraforming 3 ocean worlds. The Centauri are setting up jump gates to connect distant systems. The Corvins are actually trading fairly, and making more profit than they ever did cheating. Danny Chen's voice came over the intercom. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. The President wants to know if it's safe to reveal our other colonies. Jake looked at Lisa, who nodded. Tell Earth it's time. All of our colonies can reveal themselves. The age of hiding is over. Outside, a ship emerged from bent space, one of the new hybrid vessels, combining human, Centauri, and Milani technology. It was faster than anything that had existed before, a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. Do you think it will last? Lisa asked. This peace? Jake thought for a moment. Peace never lasts forever. There will be conflicts, disagreements, probably even wars. But the balance has changed. No single species can dominate anymore. Everyone has to cooperate or face the entire galaxy. And humanity? We'll do what we've always done. Adapt, survive, and thrive. Only now we don't have to hide. We can be ourselves, dangerous when threatened, peaceful by choice, and always reaching for something better. A new ship appeared on the edge of sensor range, an exploration vessel heading for uncharted space. It carried a mixed crew from 12 different species working together to push the boundaries of the known galaxy. You know what the best part is? Lisa said, watching the ship disappear into the void. We didn't conquer the galaxy. We didn't destroy the Council. We just showed them a better way, and most of them took it. Not bad for a bunch of primitives with one ship, Jake replied with a grin. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and wonders yet to be discovered. But for the first time in 3,000 years, every species would face those challenges as equals. The first contact had indeed seemed peaceful. The humans had played,